Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Let's take you through the papers this morning. And we're joined by the publisher of the Nation newspaper, Ikechukwu Amaechi. Always a pleasure to have you. Good morning.
Thanks for joining us.
I'll leave the pleasure is mine. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good to see you again.
Yeah.
It's good to have you. So many stories to look at this morning. We'll be reviewing the papers and opening the phone lines so you can join as well via the phone lines and contribute to any of the stories you'd like to speak about. But let's start with the Nigerian Tribune. On the front page, 7 policemen shot, scores wounded in Osun Obaship crisis. 4 of our youths killed. SROK community alleges. Adeleke orders arrest, prosecution of perpetrators, sponsors. National Assembly may pass 2025 appropriation bill this week. Oyo government inaugurates 25-member coronation committee for Alaafin. Kogi courts sacks Ohinoi of Ibiraland. Ogoniland gets Federal University of Environmental Technology. Oil and gas. Nigeria earned its $831.1 billion in 24 years and lost 701.48 billion barrels of crude, according to NATE. FEC approves 4.2 trillion naira for major infrastructure projects across the country. At the top of the paper, Bola Ige, Ladoja threatens to sue Akande. PSC didn't order IGP's retirement, according to the commission. And final story, assault. Ogun government suspends monarch for 6 months. That's all on the Nigerian Tribune. Let's go to the Daily Trust.
Well, looking at the Daily Trust, National Assembly resumes today to accelerate tax reform bills. There's also World Cancer Day will become burden to our families, says the patients. Sad news there. And court sacks Ohinoi of Ibiraland. A lot of kings seem to be in the news for negative reasons these days. I remember our breakfast conversations we talked on one of them. A condemnation trial of ex-NHIA boss pleads not guilty. Nigeria orders to get 150 billion euros EU fund. And of course, at the top of the paper, we told you the story earlier. Nigeria Labour Congress suspends protest over telco's tariff hike. Okay, moving on to our next paper.
All right. On this day newspaper, NUPRC writes all producers threaten sanctions over non-supply to local refineries. Komalafe advises refiners to adhere to international best practices in procurement operational matters. Vehigen, federal government targets 2.7 million barrels per day crude oil output by 2027. That's probably a good place to start with the conversation. But let me still take a few other headlines. Federal government approves 4.2 trillion naira for Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road and other major road projects nationwide. CBN reports banks, other financial institutions reported higher default rates for loans in Q4. And final story, Donald Trump, Ramaphosa bicker over South Africa's land expropriation law. U.S. President vows to cut funding to African country, set to extend sweeping tariffs to EU and to UK. But let's quickly start off with the potential, the plan for the federal government to achieve 2.7 million barrels per day crude oil output by 2027. We had a guest earlier, Shaun Daniel, join us, and he said from the indications that there's a possibility that we can actually achieve 2.7 million barrels per day by 2027 if we put certain things in place. And I wanted to find out if you agree with that sentiment.
If we put certain things in place, why not? Why not? Look at other oil-producing countries around the world. Saudi Arabia, how much crude oil do they produce in a day? It is tens of millions. So Nigeria can actually produce that much, but certain things must be put in place. We must also reduce the incidence of crude oil theft. So unless there is a secure environment in the Niger Delta, unless we are in a position to secure even that which is produced, the truth of the matter is that right now, nobody can tell you in real terms how much crude oil that Nigeria produces.
They say we're doing 1.6 million, 1.7 million barrels a day.
That's what they say. But the government in real terms does not know. because we don't even have the capacity to know how much crude oil is being produced here every day. So going by what has happened, there was a time we were doing less than 1 million barrels of crude oil per day. Going by how far we've been able to go in the last few years, I think that projection of 2.7 million barrels per day is a possibility, but certain things must be put in place, and there must be a secure environment where all these incidents of theft will be reduced to the barest minimum.
But is the likelihood possible? I mean, these are just, oh, if we do this, if we do this. With the way that Nigeria is moving, do you think that we're on that trajectory to achieving it and that we're doing what needs to be done to ensure security, reduction in vandalization and oil theft?
I don't think we are doing what we ought to do. I don't think we are putting in the infrastructure that is needed to actualize what they intend to do. All I am saying is that if the conditions are there, Nigeria has the capacity. The question you are asking, are the conditions likely to be there? I don't see the government pushing hard enough to put those necessary conditions, the foundation that will make it possible for us to do that much. Nothing stops us from producing 3 million barrels, 4 million barrels a day, but there must be conditions necessary for these things to take place. They don't take place in a vacuum. Go and look at the countries that are succeeding and what they have been able to do to succeed. Is a whole lot of hard work, a whole lot of infrastructure, a whole lot of other issues that must be there. There are issues that must be tackled by the government to provide the enabling environment for those who are extracting this crude to be able to do that. Are those things there? I don't think so. Will we be able to do it within the time frame they have given to themselves? Again, we are dealing with a government that is so tall on blowing hot, but when it comes to the actualities, it's always a problem.
We'll get back to you, Mr. Amaechi. We have Alphonsus on the line from Abuja. Good morning. Hello, good morning. Okay, we'll get back to you soon. And also, the This Day headline, I find this very interesting. And because the rainy seasons will be coming in the next few months, so it's very good that we fix our roads as soon as we can. Federal government approves 4.2 trillion for Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road and other major projects nationwide. It targets 2 million jobs, 100 billion GDP boost with new creative and tourism infrastructure plan. Now, what's your reaction to this?
All talk, no action.
I mean, but we're seeing the Lagos-Calabar Express. It's almost in Ogun State now.
Benga, listen. I was there, I think about 3 weeks ago, because I traveled to the east for the burial of my mother-in-law, and I traveled by road. Look, you need to be on these roads now to find out that, in fact, that the country that has this level of poor infrastructure in terms of road facilities, to be talking about 15 trillion, or is it 17 trillion Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road, means we are not serious. There is no stretch, and I'm not joking, from Lagos. Immediately you leave the Ibadan, Lagos Expressway, and veer off to go to Shagamu. From Shagamu to Owerri is like hell on earth. There's no stretch. And when you go to the Benin bypass, you will ask yourself, is this a road? And to talking about the rains, when the rains come, as they are going to come in the next few months, nobody can drive on that Benin bypass.
Now that this 4.2 trillion naira has been approved, is there time to fix things before the rains come?
Approval is one thing. Cash backing is another thing. Look, we've been hearing this all these years. After all, don't forget, in the 8 years of President Buhari, he told us that why he was borrowing so much was because he was investing in infrastructure. Go out there and find out if the infrastructure are there, particularly road infrastructure. So but
these are very basic things. I wonder why it's so difficult.
These are the least things that Nigerians should be able to ask for. We'll come back to that. Let's hear from Alphonsus, who's calling from Abuja. Good morning, Alphonsus. Thanks for calling. Please go ahead. Oh, wow. Okay.
Apologies.
Apologies, Alphonsus. We hope that we can have this conversation with you. I mean, these are the very basic things that any citizen should have when they're talking about. That's why in countries, modern climes, or in the West, when they'll be complaining about their tax, but they're seeing what he's doing. So at the end of the day, you're asking a lot of businesses were shut down for this Calabar coastal highway to function. This infrastructure and tourism that they're talking about and these job opportunities, we're already there. A number of businesses were running, but these businesses had to be shut down. I don't know if you also saw the interview, the landmark.
Destroyed completely without compensation.
Exactly.
And
he's talking about not having compensation till now.
And you are building a so-called, look, who is the contractor? Have you asked yourself? What is the guy's capacity, track record?
What was the process before awarding the contract?
What was the process?
Was it open bidding?
How transparent was the process of bidding for a contract that is the highest single contract we've seen in this country? 15 trillion or 17 trillion naira road infrastructure. And look, I think it was also here that we also, because the Minister of Works was saying that Nigeria needs about 18 trillion naira to fix Nigerian roads. If you need 18 trillion and you are budgeting 15 trillion for only one road, wouldn't it have been wiser to use 15 trillion and go and look for 3 trillion to add to make sure that the existing road infrastructure is put in place? Then after that, you can start thinking about all these other things.
That appears to be the logical thing to do.
Look, we are not serious. When a government runs more on propaganda, this is what you get. Every day, they come up with figures. Of course, they go to Federal Executive Council meeting, and they come out to tell us this and this and this and this and this. 1 year down the road, go and find out what has been done and what has not been done. Right. It is sad. Unless, look, Nigeria, Buhari was not saying the other day that Nigeria is a difficult place to govern. I disagree, with all due respect. I disagree with him. Because what are Nigerians asking for? What are they asking for? What does it take to please an average Nigerian? Nothing, little or nothing. Do the basics. Do the basics.
Right.
And allow the average Nigerian to thrive. He's not asking you heaven on earth. We are not, look, there are countries where the government literally feed the people. Nigerians are not asking you for that much, but you must put some facilities out there, enabling the environment for them to thrive. They are people who can thrive on their own, but there must be an enabling environment. Government has failed woefully.
All right. Let's talk about, speaking about the expectations of Nigerians and what Nigerians are looking for. Let's go to Ogoniland. On the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, we can see there that the Ogoniland gets Federal University of Environmental Technology. And we know that for the longest time, Ogoniland has been, in the forefront of, they've had clashes and they've had these conversations over and over again about environmental restoration. We hear that they're smack in the middle of resuming, oil activities in Ogoniland. So do you think that this is maybe compensation enough, even though the government hasn't overtly referred to this as compensation. They've said that this shows their commitment to the people of Ogoniland and setting up the university. So let's get your thoughts on this.
And again, it's not just an ordinary university; it's a University of Environmental Technology. No.
Again, if the federal government is establishing a federal university of environmental technology in Ogoniland, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But Olive, and that's why I said earlier, there's a very wide gulf between what the government promises and what it delivers. This same issue of cleaning up Ogoniland became almost like a sing song under Buhari. Even the vice president, in fact, Buhari was supposed to go there himself for all the razzmatazz of cleaning up. 8 years. Was Ogoniland cleaned up? No. President Bola Tinubu has started calling meetings again. 2 weeks ago, Ogoni leaders with Nyesom Wike and that's the immediate past governor of Rivers and the incumbent Sim Fubara, they were invited to a meeting in Asorok. It is the same Ogoniland. Now, you ask yourself, what is the primary purpose? Is it to pacify the people so that they will start drilling oil again in Ogoniland? Or is it actually to create an environment that is conducive for living?
Well, the papers report that all of this is going amid the conversation and of resumption of oil extraction in Ogoniland.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We need to understand. Look, there must be sincerity of purpose. Like I said earlier, establishing a university, in fact, whatever infrastructure the government can put in areas from where we get the money that everybody is spending is a welcome development. But are they sincerely going to do that, or is their interest only to appease the people so that they will lay down their arms and allow Shell to go back to those places to start drilling oil again? There must be sincerity. Ogoni needs to be cleaned up, and at the same time, if we are going to resume oil exploration in Ogoniland, then we must adopt the parameters. If Nigeria actually wants to go the whole hog of producing 2.7 million barrels like they are aiming to do, of course, resuming oil production in Ogoniland
would contribute to it.
Will contribute to it, and that should be part of it. But there must be that sincerity of purpose. Let it not be that all that the government wants to do is to make the people, allow them to come back to start oil, and it will be business as usual. The environment will be destroyed and all of that things. So it's a fantastic thing. Let the university be established. Let the cleaning up be going pari passu. Then they can then talk about the issue of allowing Shell or whatever to come back for oil drilling in Ogoniland. That's what I think about it.
You know, Olive, I agree with Mr. Amaechi's sentiments. There's a trust deficit. Someone once said that if you died in 1979 before the Shagari government, while they were campaigning, and you woke up in 2025, it's the same issues, and governments have promised over these years and failed on the delivery. So when people are skeptical about government intentions and purposes, they have very valid reasons, because we're still discussing these basic things: Maslow's hierarchy of needs, clothing, shelter, roads. I mean, this is how many years after independence, and we're still talking about the bad state of roads. It's a real indictment us as a people.
It is a shame. I mean, I've mentioned this earlier, how I read one of Chinua Achebe's books that he wrote in 1985. Yeah, 1985. No, yeah, 1985. And that almost 40 years later, if you see the things they complained about then, they're the things we still complain about.
Then,
you know, and they thought they were complaining. They thought it was bad. I mean, such a shame.
But there's hope.
Let's still look on the Amen. We need hope. Let's look still on the front page of the Nigerian newspaper, Nigerian Tribune, and talk about the Ogun government suspending a monarch for 6 months. I don't know if you saw the story of the Oba that allegedly assaulted a 73-year-old Oloye. We played the video earlier, where he made him kneel in public, hurled insults at him, slapped him, threatened to use the police to lock him away because, according to the Oba, he has the police in his pockets. And he made the Oloye, a 73-year-old man, prostrate to him. And the video was a very disturbing video. We played excerpts of the video. If we have it, we can still show, you know, excerpts of it as well.
You know, it is, again, it goes to the heart of what we're talking about in this country. The level of impunity that goes on. That man, 73-year-old man, Chief Areola, look, was subjected to the worst humiliation that anybody can face. Look at it on your screen. A 73-year-old man and a so-called Oba is publicly. And Olive, you know, I was asking myself yesterday, what kind of country are we actually building where everybody with little power, you see yourself as a god? You are a councillor, you are a local government chairman, you are a member of the State House of Assembly, and every other person. And these people are people who are supposed to be servants of the people. Immediately somebody gets into a position of responsibility. It is, do you know
who I am?
Who I am. And he becomes a lord rather than being a servant, as it were. It is good that the Ogun State government has suspended
Is the suspension enough?
For 6 months. It is not enough. And look, for crying out loud, this is not even a first-class Oba.
Exactly, it's some backwater place in Ogun State.
This is not even a first. So if you give this kind of man the powers that a first-class Oba has, he will order people to be killed. Because, and go back to the member of the House of Representatives, mascot, that told a dispatch rider that he can...
I'll kill you and I'll make you disappear and nothing will happen.
And nothing will happen. That is the mentality of people who think that they have the powers to lord it over.
Why did they feel there's such a level of impunity that they can get away with everything?
Because
are people not
because the state does not hold anybody accountable.
No punitive measures.
Look, in a system where there is rule of law, the system takes care of all these impunities. But here, anybody who has money can buy his way out of trouble.
But just being a decent human being, we don't even need the laws to guide us on proper conduct and how to be a responsible citizen. Why would anyone reduce a grandfather to that level?
Many Nigerians are not decent human beings. You are thinking that we have decent human beings. Look at, okay, let's even forget the Yoruba. If you have been going through the newspapers or reading the news, have you imagined the level of bestiality, the way people are being killed?
Especially the metro sections, yes.
The way people are being killed. Yesterday, 3 children were killed and their corpses dumped in a deep freezer when their parents were not around. And you ask yourself,
who is so sick?
Who are doing this? A girlfriend will visit a boyfriend, and the next thing you see, her body parts will be in bags. And you ask yourself, what is all this? Every day, every day. Yesterday, in the same Ogun State, some people were convicted for killing a staff at the Central Bank of Nigeria. I think that killing took place last year. 3 people were sentenced to death. And you also say, why are people killing just whimsically, now for the fun of it? This society is getting sicker by the day.
I agree.
There is something fundamentally wrong with our values, with our morals, with all that makes, with everything that makes us human beings. Look, there are things that make people human at the end of the day. Even animals don't kill for fun. Animals kill for food.
Right.
But here we are seeing people who call themselves human beings, who ought to have some level of decency, become less than animals in the way they treat others. And that is why an Oba will slap, beat, insult, and make a 73-year-old man who is a chief.
It's not just so, and I hear you completely, and I agree with. I must sound like a broken record when I say on this show all the time that our moral compass is broken. If we go back to that Oba story, first of all, I think the first thing we need to set in place is that no human being deserves to be treated with such disrespect. No human being, regardless of the age.
No.
Then, when we make it, bring it back to the Nigerian context, we are big on respect. It's a part of our culture. Definitely not a 73-year-old man that should be treated in that way. Again, when we talk about our leaders and we're holding our leaders to account, we must also introspect and say that these leaders come from amongst us. Tomorrow, a number of the people who are criticizing this, if they are given a chance,
they will do worse.
They will do worse.
They will do
a chance at leadership. Because our value system is broken.
So this points at us, like Olive said, these politicians and people that an elective office are not aliens. We didn't pick them from Zimbabwe.
We picked them from
amongst us. So until we have a critical mass of people that are morally upright and that are ready to serve the people, until we change our ways and look in the mirror and tell ourselves some hard truths, it will be garbage in, garbage out.
The moral fabric of the country is completely broken. Whatever it is, there are ethics that guide human conduct and relationship that we should have with each other. And the most important thing is respect. There are values. There are values that if those values, in fact, there are so many people who believe that the worst problem Nigeria has is the loss of values that ought to govern the way a society should go and should be. Unless and until we go back to those values, nothing will happen. It is because of this lack of value that...
So where do we begin to fix things from? Is it the National Orientation Agency? Is it religious bodies? Because even then, that is highly... They've corrupted those very sacred institutions, because you've seen this immorality permeate every sector of society, even hospitals that are meant to take care of the sick and weak. You see the conduct of some nurses and doctors, and you wonder if they took the Hippocratic oath. So where do we begin to fix things from? What are the low-hanging fruits? Because we have generations of young Nigerians coming up and they don't even know any better. Unless we can say, oh, we know how things should work.
Doesn't mean that we still do things the way that they should be done.
The people that are growing up looking at social media and seeing all those things happen.
I will still go by what Olive was talking about earlier, which is what Chinua Achebe said, that the problem of the Nigerian society is the problem of leadership. There's nothing wrong with our environment. There's nothing wrong with the air we breathe. There's nothing wrong with our land. There's nothing wrong with our waters. It is just the lack of leadership. Now, there are some people, I've had this friend of mine, we've had this argument over and over and over again. He would rather say it is the followers that are the problem. I said, no. What it needs is a leader who shows the direction, and people will follow. When Lim Kuan Yew happened in Singapore, when Mahathir Mohamad happened in Malaysia, when these great leaders, Abraham Lincoln, all of them, when they happened, when Roosevelt happened in America during the era of the Great Depression, we saw the changes that took place. Nigeria has been deteriorating in the quality of leadership that we've had over the years. Most people now in positions of leadership and authority are people who have shady background, people who don't have certificates to show, to present. And then how do you convince a young chap that going to school and reading and studying and passing well is something worth doing? He will tell you, what of this person who is his governor? He didn't even go to school. His certificate was forged. He had to go to court now to claim that. Only if they ask you today, if Ikechukwu Amaechi comes today to say, Olive, you didn't go to school.
I have my certificate to prove.
You don't have to go to court and hire 11 or 12 sons like Buhari did. All you do is to bring your certificate. If I am still doubting, you refer me to your university. You refer me to your classmates. You refer me to your lecturers. But here we have people who all they do to defend themselves is to go to court. It doesn't make sense. And when the leaders of a country behave like that, you're going to see what will happen to America after 4 years of Trump. The society mirrors the leader. It is as simple as that. They will get leaders who are public spirited, who are decent enough, leaders who are honest enough to say, look, Nigeria comes first. A lot of things will begin to change. Right. What we've had over the years is that we've had transactional people in positions of leadership who don't give a damn about what happens to Nigeria. It is about what happens to their pockets and how well they are able to steal in order to continue to dominate and oil their political structure so that they remain in power.
Now, I want to ask you this question. Do you think money has done a lot of damage to our psyche as a people? Because the emphasis on money, it seems once you have money, all your crimes are forgiven. If you have a lot of money, no one can hold you accountable. If you have money, they dare not even ask you. You dare not ask questions. We focus so much on money that people can't think for themselves anymore. You can't criticize someone that seems to be more financially beneficial than you and all of that. Yeah. It
is all because of the lack of values. There is nothing wrong with money. Even the traditional societies, wealth is accorded some kind of respect. That's why in the Igbo traditional society we have the Ozo titles. That's when you've acquired wealth. But there must be, people must know where that wealth is coming from, the source of the wealth. What has gone wrong in Nigeria, and this is where the values come from, right, is that people are rich without knowing where that money has come from. And as long as we continue to worship those who have acquired wealth, that we don't know the sources of those wealth, will continue to experience what we are experiencing today.